Okay. Kaberia, are you ready?
Yes.
The Aflewo story continues.
Yes.
So now you've caused an earthquake by guys jumping up and down to Kikuyu songs.
Yes.
With your first event,
yes.
you've had
it was the second one.
Oh, second event.
Yeah,
sorry.
2005. Yeah.
The first event you've had about 6,000 people.
Yes. This one has about 11,000 people.
11,000 people.
Yes.
And now you've decided, you know what, you've understood, let's say, the vision of Aflewo.
Yeah.
It's sort of
becoming
solidified
clearer.
and you've been told very clearly
yes.
that the Africa in Africa Let's Worship was not put in there by mistake.
Yes, that's very true. So now when we're preparing for 2006, we retreat. Just the 8 of us that we started and pick out along the way. Of course. Can I
ask, like, who are the 8? Like, just give me some of the names.
My wife and a lady called Rogoro, and
your best man.
Yes, Kamau and Stella. A gentleman called Kerika and Paul Cahill, the chairman. I think those are the ones, myself, and Crispus also, the gentleman I was talking about. Yeah,
so all of these guys were in the beginning in Sing Africa?
Yeah.
Is there anybody from that group who was not?
Moyo, about 4 of us were the original Sing Africa people. And then others came along the way. So by the time we were getting to here, it was different generations, but not so much apart.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Christmas was the one latest, but you see now, he had the passion for it and connected with us at an early time. Like I said, I used to interact with them, so they knew the story. And so the passionate ones were like, no, we're going to continue this story.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how now, those are the 8 that I would say that we put this thing together. So now we walk this journey together. Then in 2006, we retreat, and we've gotten other people along the way to come in, like Pastor Moses Kimani, good friend of ours. We are looking at also handing over, just succession plan early enough. I think that's when we brought in a gentleman called David Kibet, who served us for quite a while. So we are getting people around us, and this is a fraternity of many people, and a few guys are coming close to us who are not necessarily Daystar people, but also people found along the way. And remember, we've gotten also a lot of support and help from existing leaders, like Rachel was there with us. Even as she was working at SC, she came and helped lead choir direct and stuff like that. So we had all those things going on. We had Chairman and his people and the leadership come and plug in. So we started now having a fraternity of people that we started identifying. Maybe you can sit with us in the leadership and we move on. And it's from there that we widened our scope with regard to office and someone who can start some proper administration, because the work now was a lot. This is how much the work was. So back to 2004 when we were starting. So, hey, my dear wife, oh God bless her. She used to basically run. She's the one who put together the entire administrative plan. So the things we borrowed from ICC, being part of Praise Festival together, and we were both heavily involved. Even when we were dating, we had the concept of the registration. And remember, the 2 of us went and we'd sit and register people, and she came up with the concept of accountability and stuff like that. And then we said, and then she now put together a system for filing the music, so that when you come, we give you a file for the music. So that was done. So in my house, we had cartons and boxes of files. And then along the way, I think by 2005, we were thinking, why don't we have every choir member put on a t-shirt? So we thought, why don't we find ways of making revenue? Not necessarily revenue, but give back to these people what they're giving. So the registration fee covers now your pack, your file, and the t-shirt, and a little money that remains now injects into preparing for the event, because we were still relying on donations from churches. So now 2005.
How did that work? How did the donations from churches come?
Like where we were not paying for venue, it was given in kind.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, so and then would fundraise. We formed a fundraising team that would get now money for extra things like now hiring
sound
equipment
stage
and all that, so sound and stage. Then if anything that was coming directly from the choir members would go back to them with regard to the stuff that they need for the season. Again, ICC would help or go duplicate tapes, eventually CDs, started doing CDs and put them in the pack for the...
So that they can have the music of the songs.
The music, So Moyo had put all that together at home. So I had the boxes in my house. So I'm the music director and she's there, admin with the boxes and stuff like that. And so sometimes and then we started having rehearsals on Sundays. I mean, not sometimes, all the time. We said our rehearsals are going to be on Sundays. We just selected that day. So our Sundays when there's a rehearsal, you can imagine sometimes I'm leading worship at ICC and I have to go home and ferry stuff to whatever venue that we are having rehearsal. Could be NPC Woodley, it could be All Saints or St. Andrews. Those are the main places where we used to go. Take stuff, come back, probably have to pick up 1 or 2 piano microphones here because the venue that you're practicing probably have only given us a room, yeah. But you have this 100 people, 2005 were like 200 people coming in the choir. It has become, the bus just hit and repeat people, 60% repeat people, and other guys who came in. We just found ourselves in a place where, just like Sing Africa. We started with 60, it became a 60-member tradition. Here we have about an average of 200 people. It became a tradition up to today for Aflewo. So, man, when we were expecting our firstborn, I remember even at that time, just before we even went to hospital, my wife was still working on paperwork and registration and on a computer and, you know, filing and T-shirt sizes and all that stuff. We were grieving the loss of Kina Jonathan, VUC. I mean, just a lot happening, but she's still there doing the work. And when God blessed us with our firstborn, now the hustles, you're a parent, you understand? So the hustle of a Sunday. I'm the music director, I'm the father. Moyo is the active administrator and she's the mother. You've got an infant. So the trips are not, you know, there are 3 now. So you've got the baby and the gear, baby gear, and then you've got administrator's gear, and then you've got the music gear, and they have to do also the trips back after the meeting. She goes and we just get extra hands to hold the baby.
What?
I mean, she has to go and set up the table because
we do what needs to be done.
We need to set, because now we decided we have to be very organized as much as God can help us. This is God's work. So if we are rehearsing, let's say we assume that this is the rehearsal venue, we have to arrive there early before the rehearsal time is 2:30 p.m. on a Sunday. We have to be there at least half an hour before. Why? To set up the desk, because everyone has to take attendance, because we came up with stringent laws and rules and like a code of conduct and say that, you know, you have to attend ABCD number of meetings. So how do you know that? You have to be accountable. Tick. And then a very brilliant idea had come up of managing these people in small groups. Remember, we have not learned anything in Bible school or anything. We just come up, let's divide guys in groups. So now she had put up together templates of guys in different groups, and you come and tick. And then also at the high season for her, when you're starting, we have to start giving people their files and stuff like that. So some administrative things. And then meanwhile, as she's doing that, I'm inside and setting up a microphone and making sure that I have all the notes ready. If Rachel is coming to assist me teaching that particular day, we have to meet before etc. And I've been leading worship maybe in the morning at church. So when that was a typical practice day, and I just bless her so much because of the effort that she put in, even within that time.
Yeah.
And looking for extra hands. So our children are brought up, especially for her, our firstborn was brought up in this community of 200 hands, every fortnight. But we just saw God at work, and we have weekly leadership meetings. Weekly.
So this became your job.
It became and I'm still, by the way, it's just volunteer work because people have got their jobs.
Yes.
And I may have got my teaching that I'm doing. And my wife is later on volunteering even at church. So we just said, if this is how God has chosen for us to begin this thing, let it be. Tom, God bless him, as he's going up the ranks of Anglicanship, he has given us a room to be using for our meetings. Then Paul, our chairman, and my best man Kamau have been able to get to be part of the alumnus council of Daystar University. So along the way, then we get space to work at Daystar University through their request, and Daystar knew us. Remember the story from Daystar? They knew us. They said, "You guys, we trust you. Whatever you're doing, we'll help you with what you need. We know you're doing ministry work," and they were so gracious to do that for us. So we are feeling a bit organized now. We are somewhere. So the Lord speaks to us and says, "You have to take this thing, do this annually, and also spread it to other places in Africa." Wow! Now things became thick. So we said, right, one of the things we need to do is this work is so much, you need to get an extra hand. So we advertised, we said we're going to get a professional job for someone to be an administrator. So we get someone to work that for us. Then at the same time we thought, so what does it mean going to other countries? So we have to widen our leadership and ask people to volunteer who would want to help us spread. Mm-hmm. As we are thinking about how people are going to help us spread, the one that you came for in 2006, there was a delegation of like 9 guys from Mombasa. We know where they were seated. They were just busy screaming all night. Like, who are these guys? And I think they strategically wore some particular colors for us to see them. So a conversation began. That's
not the one which had the overflow.
Yes, the one that had overflow outside. A conversation began about, "Hey guys, this thing is brilliant. Why don't you do it in Mombasa?"
Ooh.
So that was our first challenge. So 2006, we thought that we were now very organized. We've got ABCD, we've got even an office and so on. But here comes now the real deal. How do you go and envision?
Oh, because you're not taking these people who you have to Mombasa, are you?
No.
You're going to do the same thing in Mombasa.
Yes, we're now going
Unite
to do the Yes. Remember, God told us this thing has to go to Africa. And the whole idea is the vision. And it was so clear. So around that time when they're feeling organized, also we took a retreat, and now that's when we said we're not going to leave. Paul, our chairman, gracious leader, told us we're not leaving this room until we come up with a statement. And we said, what is it? We threw out, what is it that you understand Aflewo to be? Yes, hope, Jesus, what, Africa, everything. It came down to a statement that we put together about having these annual events of worship. But what was clear for us is that 2 very major things that we said and sort of almost quote unquote vowed to do is that we shall be faceless. Let me put that in quote, faceless. That is not going to be about a particular star that you see. Mm-hmm. It's going to be about a community of believers. Uh-huh. That's one critical thing. The second thing was that we are not going to sell it as a music event. We are going to sell it as a vision for uniting the church. So that we are not working towards a concert, but we're working towards putting effort to bringing churches together. Then after that we can sing. So what does that mean? If Mombasa wants to do it, we are not going to take music there. Uh-huh. We are going to take the vision, the ideology and the message and the vision to them. How will that happen? We first have to go and meet. It's where we live. The way the culture in which we live is that if you're talking about church, you talk about pastors. You talk about Christians, you talk about churches. You talk about churches, you talk about pastors. So we have to go and meet the pastors of that town and share with them our idea of bringing people together. And also they're the ones who are going to give us their people in their worship teams to come together. So what does that mean? That means we widen our leadership. That means now we form a group or an arm called expansion. So that's when we realize, man, we thought we had reached there. So now I have to start thinking about retiring, quote unquote, from teaching the songs, building up other guys to come and teach the songs.
To do that work. To
do that work, so that then we can start now. The original guys started to go and share that vision out there. That's when now we started this whole thing. So by the time we're going to Mombasa, in fact, remember I told you about a gentleman who joined us in the leadership called Moses Kimani, Pastor Kimani. Good guy. He went and lived in Mombasa for 3 months. When he was there, he was helping now the Mombasa begin. So Mombasa now, we have Mombasa Pentecostal Church guys. We have a call from a group called, a church called Praise Chapel, led by Bishop T. Nalo, good friends of ours. Those are the core guys who started. Then now we widened to Elim Church, JVT and so on. But he was there for 3 months and helped them pick it up. Him together with a lady called Shoni, who is in Nakuru now. Wonderful people. Shoni was heavily involved as a worship leader in FEM with Reverend Evangelist Warimo. Those guys helped us start. So by the time, now that conversation lasted for about 1.5 years. So 2008, formally, Aflewo Mombasa began.
What?
In between...
Hey, dude, hold on, let me put some applause.
Yeah.
So when you said it began, you don't mean it was our first event?
The first event in in Mombasa was 2008. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, that's what you mean, huh?
The conversations lasted for that long.
Year.
And then they cut it. Pastors, after a couple of meetings, they embraced it and they said, you guys do it. The first one, we had about 14 pastors who came, prayed for the city in Mombasa. And we had about a choir, I think probably of, well, it was mixed with a core from Nairobi.
But who of course wanted to go down and
to
unite as well.
Yes, we did it intentionally like that. But about, I could say probably comfortably 7 to 8 churches in the first one that came together. And they formed a leadership. Our job was to build a leadership that formed there. And there's this lady, wonderful friend of ours called Penina Ngombo. Just caught the vision together with a gentleman called Dennis Orembo. They took that and embraced it, and now they started now working towards Aflewo Mombasa. Aflewo Mombasa has been one of the most powerful nights that even myself, I just, whenever I attend, I'm just like so blown away. And in the first event, I think it attracted about 2,000 people that night. Same model, worship until morning. Sing, pray, sing, pray, sing, pray for the country, for the city, pray. Now, Mombasa normally has 5,000 or so people.
When you say now, you mean it's still going on?
It still goes on. Every year it goes on. I attended 2018, the last one I attended with my family. It was unbelievable.
Okay, I told you this, I think, when we were changing batteries.
Yes.
That you have the gift of consistency. And the reason I said that is because Sing Africa still exists.
Yeah.
Aflewo, you've told me, has happened almost, I mean, every year. Maybe 1 year it just didn't happen in Nairobi.
Yeah.
Where there was an intentional break.
Yes.
How have you managed to be consistent with Aflewo? I can hear sort of what you've said in terms of the structure.
Yeah.
But even companies and events that have structure have stopped. What is it? I know there have been downtime, hard times,
yes,
financial crunches, babies.
Yeah. Babies. On the flip side, there's been a lot of marriages in Aflewo.
But also, to be real, there's also been drama.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? I'm sure there's been times the churches have been like, I'm no.
That's very true.
Internal drama even within.
That's
so what is it that has made Aflewo consistent? Because don't take this lightly.
Yeah.
You said 2004 till today.
Yeah.
That's what, 15 years almost?
15 years, yeah.
Going this year?
Yeah.
That's not easy to.
It's not easy. It's very humbling, to be honest. And that's why for me, I sometimes even run away from commenting when someone says, wow, you've been on this thing for this long, because really it has little to do with me or any of the guys we started with. What I would say is back to, I think what I alluded to, that the two things that we held on to is that we shall be faceless, and that it shall be strictly about the vision of uniting the church. Because if it was about a music concert and a show, maybe the dynamic would be different.
I hear that.
But when you have a thing, a calling, any calling, this is what I believe, any calling is very humbling. Because the calling is of God. And God's things are supernatural. We are not, we are highly privileged to be in the midst of a supernatural God who works through a natural mortal human being. So when you think of it,
a limited human being.
Yes, limited human being. So now, if you showed me the big picture, I wouldn't believe it would be too overwhelming.
It's true.
But God has to work with someone. So that someone might just say an idea to somebody else who will go and write a strategic document. Another person who will
go to Mombasa,
another person, and live there for 3 months and just willingly. These are things that are supernatural, we cannot explain, because we don't pay ourselves for these things. We don't make money out of Aflewo, nothing. We just say this is what God gave us. The other thing I would say is the nature of movements, because you see, Aflewo is a movement-based thing. We try to avoid, we say clearly that we are a movement and also a ministry. A ministry in terms of it has to operate as a ministry because it has to have operations. But ideally, it's a movement. Now, a movement, quote unquote, has no boundaries.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? It's like
lighting a fire in a matchbox.
Yes, there you go.
All of them will just, you can't say, don't catch fire now.
Yes, and that's why the only thing probably I can equate to that maybe many Kenyans can identify with is when you start a political movement. It's a movement for coming from an ideology or from something that has happened in the country, and it catches a fire. It's a wave, and you cannot ideally say this is how far it goes. You can only say how far it goes within operations. So now, you and I, who is capable of running a movement? You get what I mean? So God has to pour an idea to someone. And I think that's the reason why then I would say, from a supernatural point of view, that's why it has lasted. And also, I dare say, the place of worshiping God, you never go wrong with it. When you create an environment where people come to worship God, you never go wrong. Full stop. That's what I normally say.
Answered well.
Yes, as in, you cannot put God in a box.
But let me also say what you will not do, which is give yourself props. You also went and put in structures.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yes.
You also, I've heard you talk about a team.
Yeah.
I've heard you talk about an accountability team.
Yes.
I've heard you talk about rules and regulations. I've heard you talk about even in practice. Rules that people have to abide if they want to be part of this worship team scene.
Yes.
So there is, as much as there's a supernatural God, as much as there's it's worship, there is a level of work that you have done amongst the faith that you have, that God is doing something supernatural.
Yes, that's very true. And I think, funnily enough, I think we learned those things without planning. You know what I mean? We just found ourselves, so we've gone there. Okay, now we have 130 people. Okay, what do you do with these 130 people? This is 2004. What do you do with them? Okay, then wisdom, God just downloads wisdom. Okay, structure them. By the time you're getting to 2006,
in fact, let me take it back. You are prepared.
Yes.
If you tell me about, if people rewind this episode and go and listen to the Sing Africa episode, they'll hear what was it? I'm not the worship leader, the person who was Sarah Oyungu. How she conducted practice is how exactly you conduct practices now. When you talk about the ICC book, that's now. So there's a level of preparation for this.
That's very true. That's very true. In fact, remember I said that there was a lapse where I didn't know what God was saying. I'm just lost. feeling lost, getting all this depression. I'm busy writing songs, then I join ICC, then I'm like telling my pastor, there's something that I left in Daystar, but I can't go back there. Life is moving on. So God was actually slowly solidifying my heart for the calling that was greater, that has to do with the things that I had learned along the way.
Right.
That now here you can easily see Africa from a certain perspective and also see the heart of God and through a worship song, and look at it and how it can bless them. Not just the four walls, not just recording an album or a song, but looking at how it can unite people. And man, that is what I think just kept us going, and also just allowing God to teach us how to. The other thing that we're intentional about, how to raise leaders that we see along the way that come, because we realize we cannot stay here for a long time. We cannot stay here. This is not our thing. One major challenge that I would say, let me talk openly about church management and church leadership. One major challenge is just that moment to know when to hand over. I'm not saying that we perfectly did it, but that there has been for a long time a challenge in some circles of the church where you're not handing over, for posterity, and to be able to see that there are people around who can bring either fresh ideas or even have got a calling, okay, that can come and also support in one way or another. And with dynamics of society changing and growth, it's a reality that you cannot run away from. And I believe that God is always at work at every generation. At every generation, He's at work with 40-year-olds, He's at work with 20-year-olds, He's at work even with a 12-year-old, just like Christ was when He was 12, or Samuel or whoever. So I think that is what I can say that we've been fortunate to experience.
Why do you think church has a problem? I think actually, to be honest, a lot of the problems the church is facing now is because of the lack of that handover.
Yes.
And therefore, a certain generation feels and not in touch with this. By church, I'm talking about the building that we go to and the community and all those things.
Yes.
I feel like why do you think that has happened? I mean, I think it's an African. I'm not going to call it a curse, but I'm just going to say, even if you look at politically, apart from Mandela, you can name the few who happily.
Yes. So I think in fact, I was going to go that angle because I believe. Let me talk locally Kenyan, from my perspective. I am 43 now in 2019. My generation of people in their 40s were constantly told that we shall be leaders of tomorrow since when we were young. And the reality of the matter is we never knew when that tomorrow was going to come, because we grew up seeing, you've mentioned Africa, our country and the other neighboring countries and Africa having a particular set of leaders who took over as either first African presidents after colonialism or second presidents and stayed there for such a long time. That's from a political sphere. That I think also affected the societal sphere in things like church and so on. So you find that there was an unspoken rule that the top hierarchy of authority can only be attained by someone of this particular age. So my picture of a president was always someone in his 60s and 70s.
Yes.
The picture of a bishop was always 60s and 70s. And it was ingrained. Not forced down our throat, but just ingrained by what you observed.
The mindset that subliminally was implanted.
Yes. So because of the way we lived, that sort of became, I've been thinking about it lately, Because now it's becoming, with the world having so many young people, now I'm beginning to think, what have I done or not done as a 43-year-old? And one of the things I've not done is I've not mentored people. And I'm speaking on behalf of people our age group. Not a big chunk of people our age has thought about mentorship. It's a very small demographic. I am passionate about mentorship, but there are many people in our age group who have not mentored. Why? Because we've been busy waiting for our opportunity to take
your
up
time.
Yes, your time.
For your time.
We are skilled. We are not sure if we are. I would say we are not sure to some extent whether we are skilled or not, because there's a half group, or well, maybe not half literally, but there's a big group that doesn't even know what their purpose and their giftings are, because either they were pushed to do things that they were not born to do because of societal pressure, education that meant only you to become a certain cluster of work. So you find that
or because the generation before didn't know better.
The generation before didn't know better. Africa has been doing catch up with the world. Our identity was taken away through colonialism. When we got our independence and to rule ourselves, we've been playing catch up. To prove that we can have infrastructure, to prove that we can be developed. Because development was put based on a certain standard. Roads, hospitals, a certain set of languages that are international, a certain set of culture that most of it was different from how we lived. So you're trying to catch up. Now that catching up was in a generation of our parents who knew few things like you've got to attain a certain status quo through education, for example. So you have to be at, you have to attain a PhD in education, for instance, because that's how you will feel that you've caught up and shown that you can also manage it. You can also come up with, you can also fit into the systems of government that we are trying to catch up with the West, for instance, and do things that maybe we're not accustomed to. So that's the generation of parents that brought us up. So what did they tell us? They told us a PhD is very important, that for you to be, I'm just using PhD as an example, don't get me wrong, for you to be, to feel that you've achieved something, you have to be at a certain hierarchy level, and that status quo, status, society, socioeconomic, education is what makes you solid. Or what's the word I'm looking for? It's like what validates you in life. So you go to school and you're taught you have to pass your exams so that you can make it into a good school, so that you can make it to university, and after you make it to university, you get a good job so that you can get money, and that's what life is all about. So many of us did not experience purpose. I'm just one of those lucky ones that God had just prepared the road for me. But I believe I'm speaking to many of them who maybe they wanted to become musicians, but they were forced to do some engineering or whatever, because you can't do anything with music, because you have to attain this, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, and so on. So because of that, many of us had put in so much effort in trying to look for who we are. There were younger brothers behind us, people in their 30s and 20s, who we could have mentored if we had the substance to do it. And if we had that balance to do it, so that we can be able to have some form of understanding about posterity. And so we are caught in between. There's this bishop I'm looking up to, I'm looking at, and I don't know whether I've got the meat to do it, you know. And then there are other people who are behind us, who now you are saying are seeing the problems and the challenges that have been there.
And they are growing up already with a sense of, I want to do what I want to do. So almost a purpose sense, but not true purpose, because purpose has a God connection, but still internal inclination of I want to do this.
Yes.
And are going after it at all costs.
At all costs.
Yeah.
Because there's no mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I mean? Because there's no mentorship. I know I can, and that is so profound what you've said. You see, like for me, I'm passionate about musicians.
Yeah.
Because I can speak with some form of understanding because of my background.
Authority even.
And authority. And I'll tell them, this is what I have gone through, and this is what I've seen, and I think this is what you should do.
And to be honest, they'd listen, even like on this video, they'd listen because your work speaks. Your fruits, they're there. You see, it's more powerful when you speak from a perception of the fruits.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so now I wish there are many people, our generation especially, because we have the energy and we've got it, to be able to now realize it's our time. It is our time. And our time doesn't necessarily mean go for political office. For those ones who have been called to do that, that's fine. But it's your time. And now with all this technology, with all these TED Talks and the things that there's a local one that is happening that is so is it engaged?
The local one is called the Playhouse.
It's a Playhouse. Yeah, like you have there and other things that people are doing. We should be able now to lend a voice and say, what can I give to this continent and to the people around us? Yes, we have gone through these things that happened, and I don't like being Pan-Africanist, or there's some things we can't change, okay? But for me is to say, and where I am called, and I know my calling, is to talk about the reality of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And tell people about the transforming power of Christ in your heart first, that affects your attitude and then gives you a sense of purpose on what you can affect physically to the world around you, so that the narrative for Africa can change, and that's what I live for, that when I lead people to the heart of God, they find hope. And the hope is that no matter the circumstances that we went through, we can be healed, because healing is in the heart. I can forgive. I can be able to look towards not just the past, not looking at the past and dwelling on it, but saying, here we are as a people. What song can we sing to give glory to God? And then be able to see how we can affect society around us. One of the things that Aflewo we have done is we would take collections after the year from people, from donations and so on, and set aside a part of it to go and help people. Like one of the things we did is that we educated some poor, needy students to go through school. From the high school, from first form to fourth form, and we did that consistently. And we've empowered every other chapter. We call them chapters, which I'm going to speak about. Every chapter where we plant Aflewo in the vision, we call them chapters, and empowered every chapter to look at the needs around the social needs around them and see where they can help. So that as far as apart from just singing out in the spiritual atmosphere that night and speaking, that also there's some societal change that we are making. But that would be my response for what we are saying.
So let me ask you now.
Yeah.
Again, I love the more I talk to you, the more I see, the more I understand God's working within whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
So for example, Sing Africa, ICC was a perfect combination that led to, and all your experiences led to Aflewo.
Yeah.
But now even in Aflewo, the event that you did and traveling to Mombasa is the perfect learning school for you now to take it outside the Kenyan borders.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's the next stage to go, but I'd like to know what now? Planting or taking this vision outside the Kenyan borders.